Mafumafu is a genius. We already know this from my previous video in the series, but now we'll delve into exactly why he's a genius on a theoretical level. First of all, what is music theory? The term is thrown around quite often and usually just means objective proof that what I like is good. Either that or it is assumed that music theory means
the harmonic style of 18th century European musicians.
However, in my opinion, a better definition of music theory would be technical languages and frameworks with which to understand and discuss music. Theory is descriptive, not prescriptive. I would also add that music theory is more than just pitch and harmony. Timbral, rhythmic, stylistic, and cultural context heavily influences human perception of pitch. The same notes and harmony played in different styles and with different timbres can sound completely different to different people. See this paper for more. In this video, I am using only that which will help me and others understand the music of Mafumafu. Furthermore, everything I say is subjective, at least to an extent. Art transcends rationality, and proof is based on rationality. Therefore, it is impossible to objectively prove anything about art. Only statements like, this song has more chords than that song, can be objectively proven, but the consequences of that statement are subjective. Anyway, onto Mafumafu. One of the things that keeps me coming back to his music is the fact that it is full of things that interest me on a musical level. His songs are Japanese popular music. They're influenced by Vocaloid, J-pop, and other Weeb stuff, and they mostly conform to these genres. However, Weeb stuff in general is on average very musically interesting to me, and Mafumafu is no exception. The interesting part of his music is how he uses subtle and clever devices in the context of simple Weeb pop tunes, which makes them stand out, even from the rest of Weeb music, which is already full of good stuff. Also, you don't need to know music theory to watch this video. When I start talking about funny numbers, I will conclude with something that is understandable to everyone. Let's look at how Mafumafu uses harmony. To understand his harmony, we must first understand the context within which he is working, Weeb Harmony. Weeb Harmony is different from Western harmony because the most common chord progressions are not the same. For example, in Western popular music, the most popular chord progression, which is like 90% of pop songs, is 1-5-6-4 or some variation of that. In Japan, it's different. The so-called J-pop chord progression is usually presented by Western people as 4-5-3-6 or 6-7-5-1, and which one it is depends on the context of the song, whether it's in major or minor. In my experience listening to a lot of Japanese music, it often blurs the lines between 1 and its relative minor, 6. It exists in modal limbo, which reminds me of traditional Japanese music, though I have no evidence it's related. Obviously, the differences between Japanese and Western popular music can't be merely reduced to differences in harmony. There are massive cultural, aesthetic, and philosophical differences which cause differences in harmony as well as other aspects of music theory. There are other Weeb chord progressions worth talking about, namely the anime canon, which you could learn more about here. We see that he's making liberal use of these Weeb chord progressions, but what does he do that's interesting with them? Take a listen to this. Okay, so what's going on here? When I first heard this, I didn't really notice those question mark chords because I thought it was just a standard anime canon. So I ended up transcribing it, and here it is. So usually in an anime canon, in this part it would go a 2-5 is just a big 5. So he replaced it with a 5 substitute. So it's just the 5 of 4 with the bass and an inner voice walking down into a 4. The voice leading makes the chords cool, but it really is nothing other than a interesting 5. This is a good example of two things he often does. First, he likes adding descending bass lines to otherwise normal Weeb progressions, and second, he uses interesting passing chords. Like in the last case, they often come together. Let's look at a few more examples. So this is just a cool little descending sequence starting on 4, followed by a plagal minor 4 to 1 in first inversion, followed by a 2-5 half cadence. But there's an interesting little passing chord in there. That one chord is an E9, probably an omit 3 because I can't hear one. I like to think of it in two ways, either as a 5 substitution because of diminished invariance, because if you have a dominant functioning chord with a flat 9, then the upper structure is a diminished chord, which means it has 4 equivalent chords, so you just change the root around. So C sharp acting as a dominant is the same as E, which is the same as G, which is the same as B flat. That's just one way I think of it, as a jazz kind of way. Equivalently, you could look at it as just the flat 7, which is like a dominant functioning chord. Flat 7 is all over the place in popular music. Or you could look at the voice leading. Here you see the bass note and one of the inner voices enclosing the target note by leaping up and then back down. It's just a 2-5 with a passing chord. Next. Here we basically have a delayed transition from a flat 6 major 7 to a 5. The minor third against the D major 7 chord adds a lot of dissonance, which is then resolved. So on all the previous choruses, we go to a flat 6 when we hit this part, but this time our expectations are subverted. We go to a half diminished chord instead, which is just one note away from the flat 6, but it lands so well, I thought it was worthy of mention. So we've seen a few examples of how Mafumafu uses passing chords. He especially likes descending chromatic bass lines as the context of these passing chords. These are very subtle devices, but I think they are incredibly impactful. I think the mark of a sophisticated musician is doing the right thing in the right place, just enough to be effective and not too much. Mafumafu uses passing chords just right and in context with the melody to add impact to fairly standard chord progressions and to important notes and important points in the song. There are many other examples I could go through, but hopefully these gave an idea of how he uses passing chords. But he also uses some less subtle harmonic devices. They could be very fun. So that sounded pretty weird, didn't it? What exactly is going on there? Well, there is something going on, and you could hear about it in the next video. So stay tuned and subscribe to CAA. Bye!